How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is FPL Brian, and today we're going to be doing our FPL review for game week 5. Now, like every other content creator and FPL expert, we have had a bad week. It was a good weekend for the very rare differentials, but we're still sitting in the top 500,000-ish, which realistically, if you compare it to everyone else, I'm doing pretty well. I'm very happy with my position right now. And in today's video, if you did watch my last week's one as well, where I've done a deep dive in how the data is actually analysed, today I'm going to show you the results of that. I've created up my own rating based on points, minutes on the pitch, bonus points, goals, creativity, influence. All that has created my own FPL rating for each player in each game week, and I've worked out the median points for all of that, which shows consistency. Because if you compare that to the likes of Son, Sterling and Ferguson, who we know have had absolute incredible game weeks, scoring hat-tricks and getting multiple points, that hasn't averaged across the whole season so far. So what I've created is the ability to show consistency in players to actually predict how well they're going to do. Now, the result of that is actually going to be a bit of a topsy-turvy one, because you're still going to look at other FPL creators who keep banking on Nicholas Jackson with no evidence to back that up. Expected goals and expected goal involvement is not a great analysis point. It's something that 2 years ago nobody knew what XG was, and now it's everywhere. But it really doesn't actually influence FPL in that way. It shows a team's goal involvement. Yes, there's times where a player should be scoring more goals than what they are, but that's not a good thing that they're getting in the right positions and not finishing it. That's not a player you want in the team, because that's going to reduce their bonus points. So I've sort of went behind or against the grain as well, and actually created something that I actually feel a bit more confident in, and how I'm actually going to keep going forward with FPL. Like the likes of Awanyene, I brought him in game week 2 and he's not left my team yet, and he has returned every single game. He got 3 goals and 2 assists in 5 game weeks, just getting 1 each week, but that's consistency, and that's what you want in your team. You don't want a player blanking each game week. I would much rather have every player on my team get an assist or a goal each week than get multiple one week and then I end up wasting a captaincy on them. I like to look at the whole thing as a picture and show the form of what they're in, which is where I'm sort of creating this entire database for. So without any further ado, I'm going to go through the top 15 players in each position except goalkeepers, because I'm leaving that for another video, because we really shouldn't be looking at goalkeepers right now. We're going to go through the top 15 defenders, midfielders and forwards and see who we should be looking at for game week 6. Although, just a bit of advice as well, do not do your transfers until afternoon on Saturday, because there is no early kickoff, which means we might have a lot more information on team sheets coming out for 3 o'clock. So leave it as long as possible, because you might be able to make some amendments with leaked team sheets just before 3 o'clock, or just before 2 o'clock, so about 1:30 British time on Saturday. So without any further ado, let's get into the best 15 defenders. Okay, so if you tuned into Saturday's live stream, you would have actually seen how I've actually built this spreadsheet, and it might look a lot of overwhelming data at first, but it actually does make sense. All the information is pulled from the fantasy football site, so there's no tinkering with that. It's literally straight copy and pasting to create all this. But over here at the right hand side, I've actually got my own custom fields. Now, something I don't really have a name for, which is called the Brian field, or the Brian rating, literally calculates a specific rating per game for each player based on the amount of points, minutes played, goals scored, assists, everything to do with that, yellow cards, red cards, all of the data that is literally available to us to give them a rating per game. So we can see here in the top row that Haaland in the 5-1 with Fulham in game week 4 has got a rating of 27.62, which is very good, but he did score a hat-trick that game. And you can see down below he gets a 7.16 when they only beat 1-0 to Newcastle. And this is only going to show the top 4 because the way I built this, but every game week so far, including the Nottingham Forest Burnley game last night, has been included to this. They're just going to be at the bottom in a different format. So I give them all a rating per game, which is actually going to show consistency. Then you can move over here where we've got the median points, which is a very important thing that a lot lot of people don't bring up because they're just going to look at averages. But averages don't really mean anything. You look at Son, who's done absolutely nothing except then one game bags a hat-trick, and all of a sudden his average is going to be shot up. Median is going to show consistency across all games. But the way that this my Brian rating works as well is it does take in price, so we can look at affordability and future prospects in the game. Now we can see here that Brian Embuemo, yep, has gotten one of the best ratings in the game because he has been so consistent. Another rating down here for Madison because he's been consistent. This is where we are actually able to pull form and actually make judgment decisions going forward. Now I've used all this data then to create my own pivot tables where I've ended up bringing all of this together, where I'm looking at average points per minute, expected goal involvement, expected goal per minute, blah 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 blah, because that really will make a difference as well in being able to read this. And I put it some here where a nice easy way that you can actually view this, where I put it into a chart where we're actually having a look here at the rating, median points and average points. Now you look at somebody like Ake, where if we go back to the pivot table, he is not going to have that much minutes played, so we really want to be judging it on the ones that are going to be consistent. Now Udogie, Saliba and Romero have absolutely smashed it, and to be fair as well, Diasse, who's been getting a 4.8 average points because he's kept 2 clean sheets now, but Saliba as well in terms of median points is exactly on par with him, but Diasse does get a higher rating because he's had a slightly bit more points, which makes sense in terms of the positions played because Arsenal have conceded a few in specific locations. But you look at the Romero and Ream, who's been getting absolutely undervalued by the looks of things. Tim Ream's got an average median point of 7 and a rating of 31.5 if you use it to the nearest decimal, and he's played over 333 minutes, which compared to Udogie and Saliba is quite a little bit less, but the consistency of Tim Ream might make sure that he's actually someone we want to have a look at. He got a bonus point there at the weekend, or maybe even 3, as well as a clean sheet, but yeah, they were playing Luton. So you want to take all this information and actually use it in a way you're going forward when you're looking at the future matchups, because that is also a key thing as well. Because you look at Botman as well, who's literally, I think he got man of the match as well at the weekend there, but he's got a good rating from that. But this is the average rating as well. This isn't just the 1 point overall. This is their average rating that I'm giving them per game, and that's actually worked out very well over the space of the 5 games he's played. Although everyone kept slating the fact of how bad that Newcastle have been in form, this takes in consider his price as well and how good his future point scope is going to be looking at. Because for someone who's so cheap, like we can comment back here to find Botman's price, and we can see that Botman here, 4 games listed in the other one before, and we can see that his price is 4.5, which is an absolute steal to give him these good ratings going forward. Because yeah, they might not have had the results Newcastle and maybe conceded goals here and then, where you can see the minus points of where people are selling them and then selected by. We can actually see that that 4.5 value is worth a lot of points going forward. So this is where I've sort of come together with this absolute decision here of how I'm going to be building this. So this is where I've come up with here with the top 15 defenders, and Botman is definitely in there, but Trippier doesn't make it based on his 6.5 value. Now don't get me wrong, that could be completely blown out the window and he can get an assist in points based on the Newcastle fixtures, but this is the historic data that we've had and able to build over the last 5 game weeks, which is an absolute amazing thing that we're able to do. But guys like Tim Ream, Udogie as well is going to have a really high one based on his price, but we see that keep going up. Saliba was an absolute steal at the start of the year, and I've brought this up before, why people picked Gabriel, which made no sense to me, because last year Saliba had like a 0.01 more points per minute, which is a huge differential aspect, and everyone picked Gabriel because of goal threat, but you need to remember Saliba missed thousands of minutes due to injury. So anyone that told you to pick Gabriel really has to have a look at the data and make decisions better, because that was so stupid. Saliba was always the first choice, and you saw at the start of the season as well how many game weeks he missed. It made absolutely no sense. Estepunian looks absolutely fantastic as well, getting basically a 32 Brian rating and then a median point of 4.5, but it's these ones here that are above the 5 points that are looking good. You can see as well that there's going to have 3 Spurs defenders because they've done pretty well so far, except conceding to keeping a clean sheet against Sheffield United at the weekend, and Jamie Getz got so lucky there. that Richarlison finally got off, which might actually put a little bit of nerve into Son's rankings, but we'll move on from that whenever we get to that. We're going to have a look at this so far. Romero is definitely crushing it because he's overperforming in terms of what he's actually able to do from a centre back. But fair play, he is getting the points on the board and getting a good rating. Was getting the medium points. But put it all here in a chart as well, we can actually see where things are coming up. Rico Lewis is quite low on the rating based on his value, but he's still doing a lot better than the others. Digne might be somebody we want to have a look at as well for Aston Villa. He's getting good ratings and good median point average across all games as well. So whenever Aston Villa shifts, might be somebody I'll be keeping an eye on too. Akanji, the only issue with Akanji is Pep Roulette, but we did see that we missed a game as well due to being sick, but hopefully that doesn't come up regularly. Aurier's up there because obviously Nottingham Forest kept clean sheet and he's got a goal and an assist in a good few games as well. So these are guys you want to keep an eye on, that they're actually doing quite well and maybe make decisions of it. Moving from there, we'll go into midfielders, and it's a bit more easy to look at here. Hudson-Odoi we can just not look at yet. I brought in the match per minutes for our minutes played for this one because he only played 70 minutes last night on his debut. He's not played a game yet and he absolutely smashed it. So we're not really going to be looking at people that have got probably under 330 odd minutes. The same as Solomon as well. Barely played. He's only played 69 minutes of the season so far. But Diaby, he's starting to perform now, getting good average ratings now and good points per minute. But the ones up here, these four players here are absolutely vital. The fact that Ward-Prowse is just being undervalued right now, and the fact he's on all set pieces, he is probably one of the people I am seriously considering now, and I feel a bit late to the party now because a lot of people are looking at him. Same as Jared Bowen as well. Their price really makes them such a valuable asset, and I'm really considering bringing them in. Salah has got quite a low Brian rating, only because of the fact that he's blanked so many games so far, and based on his value he should be aiming higher on points. But don't get me wrong, if you have the money I would bring him in because the Liverpool fixtures are looking fantastic and he is definitely a vital player that we should be looking at. But this is only based on Liverpool's start so far, that he's not really been the main man. We've seen the comebacks and we've seen what they've been able to do, and fair play to them, but his rating so far has not been that good in terms of the 5 game weeks played. And then he gets 2 assists there at the weekend as well, which is something that is like he's going to boost his score up. He probably wasn't even on here until that, getting that rating, but his median points is fantastic in terms of just being always given a return as well, which is somebody that we need to have a look at going forward. But so far these are the ones that are really sticking out. Grealish is maybe not in there as much based on the amount of minutes played, and Pep Roulette with only 180. But the ones that you have to be looking at, like if you don't have Mbuemo, if you don't have Ward-Prowse or Maddison, like if you don't have one of them 4, you're struggling. If you have 2, you're doing alright, and I feel a bit of an idiot that I've only got 1, although I do have Saka in my team. I have this sort of looking at right now. Saka's rating's going down based on his price and not having that many returns so far, and having a top fixture over the next couple of weeks with Spurs and Liverpool coming up. It is going to be a bit difficult for him to maybe catch up, but you still have to bank Saka, the fact he's on set pieces as well. But Ward-Prowse and Bowen are people I'm going to be looking at whenever the West Ham fixtures start to switch. But we do have them in Europe as well now coming up, so we might have a little bit of tinkering and they might fall off a bit. But so far so good for them. But looking at the main one, Maddison is definitely one that I'm going to be seriously considering for my midfield too. And that leads me on to down to Neto, who has been very undervalued as well. He's got a rating of 28.6 based on the statistics and how I calculate my own ratings, and he's someone that I'm really looking at as well. He got an assist on Sundays or Saturday as well against Liverpool, although Wolves did just fall asleep right after that and Liverpool came straight back into the game in that second half. But he has been Mr. Consistent as well, and getting 5 medium points, which means he is showing a return basically every single game. He is somebody as well that we have to have a wee gander at to make sure that we're going to be doing right in terms of that's what he's going to be getting each week. week. So median as well, by the way, I don't know if I've mentioned this, is basically the middle number. So we look at every one of Salah's points this week. So we say for all 5 game weeks Salah's played, we've looked at his bottom points and his top points, and then we pick the middle one, which shows the consistency of where the points are coming from. He is going to blank some game weeks and is going to smash at some game weeks, which really will shrug off the averages, which is why you don't even see Sterling in this list, or Son, who's obviously got hat-tricks and 2 goals and assists and whatever in all their games. They don't make this list based on the fact that one game does not actually show form, which is something I'm very passionate about actually creating a data set for. But this is what the midfielders are looking like here, and we'll move right into the forwards now, and we can see that the big boys are absolutely smashing this. We can take out Jesus because he's only played 15 minutes and absolutely smashed it, but Alvarez has been doing bits, absolute bits, and you gotta give him credit for it. Like, he's actually outscoring Haaland in terms of minutes played as well as the rating as well, because of his value. Now we all know that Haaland is just someone you just have to have in your team. It doesn't matter what the price is, you need to have him in your team. So the rating that I do give to the players are only for really working out my differentials and the players that other people don't have, but everyone's got Haaland because you need to, just because you're not going to go anywhere without him. The man is a robot, as we all know. So without even looking at him, he's only got a rating of that based on the fact he is 14 million, and I would be surprised if his price keeps going up if he keeps on form the way he does. Alvarez has been absolutely smashing it. Archer I had a great game once, but then he's only played 79 minutes total, so I'm not really going to count that. Awoniyi has been the guy I've been telling you about since game week 2 to get him in your team. He has scored and assisted every single game week, and he's been absolutely fantastic. Watkins has been doing well as well, getting a median rating of 5 and average points of 4.4, which might actually seem a little bit less than what you expect, but the Brian rating is not that good for him, in terms of the fact that his value is probably a little bit high for what you're getting right now. And Nketiah has been doing well, but with Jesus coming back in, there's going to be obviously a lot of rotation for that. Odsonne Edouard has come out on top though, has been the best striker for value this season with a Brian rating of 28.7, but getting a median point of 4.5, which obviously is because Crystal Palace are not exactly reliable in terms of what you're going to be getting, but the fact that he's been scoring goals, taking set pieces, his value has went up over the last 2 weeks compared to what it was at the very start, and his average points as well is 6, which, like I've been saying before, like Haaland's average points is 9, which is obviously going to be huge, but Edouard at 6 might be somebody as well you need to be looking at. Like, he's up there in the top 5 in this whole list of average points, with Awoniyi and Alvarez too, and obviously Archer, but we're not really looking at him based on the fact he's only played 80 minutes so far in the season. But yeah, that's how we've really calculated it all. I've put together some of these charts as well. I'll be able to put them at the very end of the video as well if you want to have a look at them and maybe do a little bit of that, but realistically we're looking at the table because that's the most important thing to be looking at. But yeah, that is how I've been doing a deep dive into the analysis on who you should be looking at for your team. There's a lot of talk about who we should be bringing in, who we should be getting rid of. In terms of who we're actually getting rid of, there are some players that we really need to have a look at if you do have in your team, and I'm going to just be completely honest with you. If you have still got that buffoon Nicholas Jackson, sorry, I meant to say that we can say whatever we want, we'll clear from, he has a rating of 17, which is tragic. His median points is 1, so he is taking up a spot and a half just being on your team. His average points is 2.5, which if he was to play 90 minutes and not get a yellow card, which he's consistently getting, which he's going to be up for a ban, you're just wasting a spot with him in your team. He has a good average XGI, but over 5 games to be returning a median point of 1, get him to boot from your team. You are sleeping on some of the people that are actually getting consistent points in your team. And if you, I don't know who's told you to keep Nicholas Jackson, or what information or what data they're looking at, because I'm looking at it right here in front of me, and anyone who tells you otherwise is they don't know what they're talking about. They just don't have a Scooby-Doo, because he's useless. Did you not see the miss he's had every single week? It's been tragic. he's not really ready for the Premier League. There's no data to back it up. When people keep saying there's data, the underlying data, right there, where's the evidence? There isn't. Absolute full of nonsense thinking he's got a player on him. There's no data to back that up. This is literally a full-on review on how everything's calculated, and I've used it all to the best of my ability to be able to create these statistics and be able to give proper player ratings going forward. But that's all we've got time for today. That's enough of another rant on Nicholas Jackson. And main points for today: get in Maddison, Awoniyi, or defender, probably Botman going forward based on value. That's definitely the #1 player to be looking at for each position, and I will be doing my team reviews again on Thursday, so make sure to get them sent in to my Instagram. The link will be down below. I'll be using this to try and identify who you need to switch for your team, and from that point then we'll be going into game week 5 or game week 6 should I say. And remember, do not do your transfers until the last possible moment, because we're going to have so much data available for game week and team leaks as well, because it is a 3 PM kickoff on Saturday for the first game week. There's no Friday, there's no early, so we have a little bit more time to have a look at the data and maybe make some decisions based on that. So have a wait till then before you end up making any harsh decisions, because you still got Champions League football and European and Conference League and all that, where a player could get injured, and it's very vital that we have as much information as possible before we make any decisions going forward. That's going to be all for me today, and I will see you on Thursday. Goodbye.